Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. I am your host, Craig DeLuz. This is where we talk about all things Second Amendment, whether we're talking pop culture, television, law, legislative advocacy, whatever it is. You name it, we're talking Second Amendment and firearms, whether it's California, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, anywhere across these United States, including Washington, D.C. So please take a moment to like and share this video feed so that your friends can become our friends. I want to make sure to thank our sponsors, Sacramento Black Rifle and Sparks Black Rifle, for supporting Coffee with Craig and, making sure that we're able to bring this conversation to you. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? You know, I got to tell you, I am a big, first of all, here at FPC, we are major advocates for the Second Amendment. I mean, for civil rights, period, especially the Second Amendment. But whether we're talking due process, whether we're talking private property rights, or whether we're talking free speech, we are big fans of it. And we're especially big fans when one of those other civil rights is being exercised in defense of or as a part of our Second Amendment rights. And we had an individual, and you guys have probably already seen this. This individual, his name is Mark Robinson, and he is in Greensboro, North Carolina, and he just spontaneously decided he was going to go to his city council because they were considering eliminating a knife and gun show, or a gun and knife show, whichever way you want to put it. And he just felt it necessary to give them a piece of his mind. Now, I do this sort of stuff for a living. So to be honest, it's not that difficult for me to just get up off the top of my head and let people know what I think when it comes to our right to keep and bear arms. But for John Q. Citizen to decide to get up and go to a city council meeting and give this speech, a speech like this, is something to behold. And I know you've already seen it, but we've got some conversations, some interesting stuff that went on afterwards that I want to discuss with you on the other side. So check out his presentation real quick.
I've heard a whole lot of people in here talking tonight about this group and that group, and domestic violence and blacks, these minorities and that minority. What I want to know is, when are you all going to start standing up for the majority? And here's who the majority is. I'm the majority. I'm a law-abiding citizen who's never shot anybody, never committed a serious crime, never committed a felony. I've never done anything like that. But it seems like every time we have one of these shootings, nobody wants to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet. You want to put it at my feet. You want to turn around and restrict my right, constitutional right that's spelled out in black and white. You want to restrict my right to buy a firearm and protect myself from some of the very people you're talking about in here tonight. It's ridiculous. I don't think Rod Serling could come up with a better script. It does not make any sense. The law-abiding citizens of this community and many communities around this country, we're the first ones taxed and the last ones considered and the first ones punished when things like this happens, because our rights are the ones that are being taken away. That's the reason why I came down here today. Gun show or no gun show, NRA or no NRA. I'm here to stand up for the law-abiding citizens of this community, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You can take the guns away from us all you want to. You all write a law, I follow the law, I'll bring my guns down here, I'll turn them in. But here's what's going to happen. The Crips and the Bloods on the other side of town, they're not going to turn their guns in. They're going to hold on to them. And what's going to happen when you have to send the police down there to go take them? The police can barely enforce the law as it is. As what I see, we demonize the police, criminalize and vilify the police, and we make the criminals into victims. And we're talking about restricting guns? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that when the police department's already hamstrung? You're not going to be able to go down here and take these guns from these criminals. So the criminals are going to hold on to their guns. They're still going to have them. They're still going to break in my house, and they're still going to shoot me with them. And guess who's going to be the one that suffers? It's going to be me. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight, it is not going to happen without a fight. And when I say fight, I don't mean shots fired. I don't mean fist thrown. I mean I'm going to come down here to this city council and raise hell just like these loonies from the left do until you listen to the majority of the people in this city. And I am the majority. The majority of the people in this city are law-abiding, and they follow the law, and they want their constitutional right to be able to bear arms. They want to be able to go to the gun show and buy a hunting rifle or a sport rifle. There are no military-grade weapons sold at the gun show. An AR-15 is not a military-grade weapon. Anybody that would go into combat with an AR-15 is a fool. It's a semi-automatic 22 rifle. You'd be killed in 15 minutes in combat with that thing. So we need to dispel all these myths, and we need to drop all this division that we got going on here. Because the bottom line is, when that Second Amendment was written, whether the framers liked it or not, they wrote it for everybody. And I am everybody. And the law-abiding citizens of this city are everybody. And we want our rights, and we want to keep our rights. And by God, we're going to keep them, come hell or high water.
Any doubt, any question as to how this brother felt? I think if you had any question, there probably really was no real need to have a question after that. Now, I thought, and I'm sure that many of you do, I thought that what the brother said was reasonable. What he basically said was, look, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm going to fight against these laws. And I know some of y'all out there, probably, I would say, a little less reasonable, probably a little bit more, how shall we say, when he said, I'll come down here and turn in my guns, how shall we say, I bet there's a number of people in our audience that are a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for, thou shalt not comply-ish. But anyway, all that having been said, this brother's basically saying, look, we have rights. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and you have no right to take my rights because a criminal is out there committing crimes. You have no right to be able to impinge on my ability to be able to purchase a firearm of my choice where I choose to purchase it. If it is a lawful transaction, if it is a lawful event taking place and I legally purchase my firearm there, what business is it of you, Mr. and Mrs. City Council member? So here's an individual who says, look, I'm a law-abiding citizen. He stands up for himself. And as a result, and this is something that unfortunately happens quite often when you are a person of color, when you are a black man. And for those of you who do not know, yes, I am a black man. I know a lot of you are looking like, isn't he Latino? No, I am a black man. And I have been on the receiving end of a lot of comments relating to when I stand up for values that are out of the mainstream for the African-American community. And one such example of one such statement was put out there. It was funny as I was researching for this particular piece, for this particular conversation. The first video that came up had this as the title: Mark Robinson auditions for NRA Uncle Tom 2018 reboot. That's right. This individual, Mr. Michael Robinson, was referred to as an Uncle Tom because he dares stand up and say that he believes in the right to keep and bear arms and wants to be able to exercise that right. Now, the interesting thing about this particular comment was, first of all, let me just note that that piece actually wound up not being there when I returned, or at least the piece was there, the video was there, the description was not there any longer, which I found to be quite interesting, because clearly somebody took issue with him calling someone an Uncle Tom. But the thing is that because he espoused a position that was consistent with an organization that an individual deemed to be not supportive of black people, then he was to be considered an Uncle Tom. Now, what did he say there that was Uncle Tomish? Did he say something along the lines of, well, us black people needs to be disarmed? Did he say that, well, you white folks show is better than us black people? So, I mean, did he say anything like that? Did he say anything, did he even mention blacks, black people, minorities? Did he mention any of that? All he said was, look, I'm part of the majority. I'm a law-abiding citizen. As if black people can't be law-abiding? Is that what you're trying to say? Is that what these folks are trying to say, the people who are coming against him? But see, like I said, I've been through this. I've gone through this the last 20 plus years of my life of activism on issues that, once again, that people would deem are not consistent with what we as black people are supposed to believe, according to some folks. You have folks like this individual right here. Tell me if this individual if you guys recognize this particular individual. Coleon Noir. Coleon Noir. He is a commentator with the NRA. He's been met numerous times with issues of being called out of his name, being called an Uncle Tom, being called a sellout, because he would dare stand up for an organization that actually, by the way, was responsible for helping to train freed black slaves in order to be able to defend themselves and defend themselves when the Ku Klux Klan came a-calling. So because he is a spokesman for that organization, because he does commentary for that organization, you have people who come out against him. How about another individual? Here's one. Matter of fact, here's two. Sheriff David Clark, who's the sheriff in Milwaukee, as well as Taj Murray. Oh, I'm sorry, Taj Murray. Maj Touré. Sorry, Maj, man. But now this is a brother who I'm sorry, anybody who's ever met Maj, anybody who's had a chance to hear Maj, that he is not an Uncle Tom. In fact, there are some people on the right side of the aisle who think that some of the things that Maj has to say are a little too radical, right? A little too, how shall we say, Malcolm X-ish. But my point here being is that because he has taken that position, because he's stood up and been supportive of the right to keep and bear arms, he's been on the receiving end of attacks, like this one right here. So this is a guy who said, his name is Tariq Shahid. He basically made the accusation that Maj Touré was on his show, and he said he'd like to apologize to his listeners because he somewhat legitimized the dude without properly vetting him. He says he said this dude has way too many questionable ties with white supremacists. And by the way, for those of you who don't know what that means coons. He's calling black people coons. And the person who he's calling a coon, well, that's the individual that's standing right there next to him. The individual that's standing right there next to him, you guys, as we saw in that particular picture, was Sheriff David Clark. He is a sheriff there in Milwaukee. And here you have photos with him, and these were the photos that were actually included with the post. But so here you have these photos, and the sad part is that he's got a picture of him with Allen West. Now, once again, anyone who's ever met Allen West knows that Allen West is not a coon. Allen West is a man who stood up. He is a proud black man, right? And yet these people believe that it is okay for them to disparage and call other people names because, well, they don't support their political perspective. In fact, there was one political commentator who just flat out and outright called Mr. Clark a coon on MSNBC, and nobody correct. I'm sorry, he didn't call him that. He called him an Uncle Tom. Let me clarify. He called him an Uncle Tom, but he didn't feel nobody felt the need to correct him. Well, because he's not a liberal Democrat. So because he's not a liberal Democrat, because he happens to believe in the right to keep and bear arms, because he believes in individual responsibility, well, he should be called outside of his name. It's okay for them to call him all sorts of names. It's okay for them to disparage him. It's okay for them to rebuke them and call them all sorts of names outside of their name. And what's odd about this is, we look at a lot of the disparaging things that are said about the president and about these individuals. And because in some cases, these individuals would stand with the president on certain issues, or because they'll just flat out just stand with the president, that because of that, they feel like they can call anybody anything. But yet and still, this president says anything that anything he says, they would turn and they would deem as being racist. Well, here you have specific examples where individuals are standing up for nothing more than their own rights and the rights of every other individual, regardless of their race, regardless of their religion, regardless of their income, and saying, look, I have a right to defend myself. That right is enumerated in the Constitution as the right to keep and bear arms. And because that individual would stand up like that, because they would stand up for themselves, you're going to call them an Uncle Tom? Who's really doing the cooning? Who's really the Uncle Tom? The individuals who are out there for their multi-billionaire, liberal, left-wing plantation slave masters? Yeah, that's who y'all are on MSNBC. Mr. Lemon and the rest of y'all who decided that you are going to call people out of their names because they would dare stand up for themselves. Because we have decided to leave the liberal plantation, y'all have decided y'all going to try and come back on us. Well, guess what? It's time for y'all to wake up. It's okay to leave the plantation. It's okay to think for yourself. Because let me just be real honest with you. After they've silenced you, after they've finished making sure that our families are destroyed, that our community is crime-ridden, that we are fully and wholly dependent on the government, and that we are disarmed, trust me, they will make sure that they complete the job. They will make sure that they come for us. And when I say us, by the way, let me just be clear. I'm not just talking about black folks. I'm talking about every single one of us. Any individual who is willing to give up their liberty for some purported security against gun violence is a fool. And you will not have your security. And you will not have your liberty. All you will have is slavery. If you don't believe me, just look at history. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being a part in the fight for our civil rights. Remember, we have got to use them or we will, in fact, lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.